So I grew up in a strict Christian household, and I ended up leaving Christianity. So I don't know if a lot of people know, but I am an ex-Christian, and I have RTS, or suffer from religious trauma syndrome, which is a syndrome that can mimic the effects of PTSD or CPTSD, or in my opinion, developmental trauma. And it occurs when someone has been indoctrinated into a religion and then steps away. Now, I am talking about this today because a lot of my videos have recently gone viral, and a lot of them are dealing with religion. So I'm getting a lot of people come in that don't know that I have a background in Christianity, or are telling me that, oh, I need to find Jesus or whatnot. So today, and I get a lot of people, even people who know me, want to know why I left Christianity, or what was the cause there. So today, this is something that's very deeply personal for me. It's not something I particularly enjoy talking about, but we're going to be discussing why exactly I left Christianity, my problem with Christianity, and specifically 4 reasons why I left Christianity. Another good reason why that I want to bring this up is because a lot of people are like, why do you always talk about Christianity so much? Why are you obsessed about Christianity? How come you don't talk about other religions? Well, I do talk about other religions, and we talk a lot about esoterica. If you look at my channel has a wide range of topics. It's just the ones dealing with Christianity are usually the ones that end up going viral, or a lot of people end up seeing. Now, the reason why I talk about Christianity is because I have a deep connection to it, because I was raised in it. I'm very familiar with it, and it did a lot of, it made my life very difficult. So I speak out on it because it's something that I've had direct experience with. I'm sure you can understand people who have survived other traumas. So people who have survived, let's say, being beaten by their spouse or something. They perhaps become a person who wants to talk about those issues or raise awareness about those issues because it deeply impacted them. So I want to raise awareness about the issues that I faced and that I think that the world needs to know about, because religious trauma doesn't just apply to Christianity, but it applies to all mainstream religions, a lot of different systems as well, where it can have lasting and damaging effect on an impressionable mind. But I've done videos on religious trauma syndrome before. That's not what we're going to talk about today too much. We're talking about the 4 reasons why I left Christianity, kind of my story there. So that's what we're going to do. Now, real quick before we begin, I want to remind you, hey, if you enjoy my work, like and subscribe, and join my Patreon if you enjoy what I do. It helps out a lot, and you get access to members-only videos every single week. So today's members-only video that we're talking about right after this is actually all about the military whistleblower who was claiming that the U.S. has a program for recovering UFOs. So it's been in the news a lot lately. So in general, we're going to be talking about aliens, UFOs. Do they exist? Don't they? If they do, are they on Earth, etc.? That's what we're talking about in the members only videos. So you get one every single week. And also, let's see, a couple things here. Remember, there's a lot of scams going around in the comments, people pretending to be me in the comments saying, join my WhatsApp, join my Telegram or whatever. That's not me. Don't fall for it. I'm never going to ask you to join a WhatsApp or a Telegram. I don't have a Telegram. I don't have that. So keep that in mind. Don't fall for it. Also, be aware, there are a lot of people and groups out there that don't want the information that we are spreading to get out. And so they are spreading misinformation and disinformation about me and those involved with getting this information out there, putting out a lot of lies. So be smart, use your reason, don't fall for the bullshit, keep your eyes open. All right. That being said, let's talk about this. So like I said, we're going to talk about 4 reasons why I left Christianity. And for those who don't know, I grew up in a strict Christian household. I was homeschooled. I was taught young earth creationism. So I wasn't taught evolution. I wasn't taught any of that at all. What I was taught is that the earth is only 6,000 years old. So that's young earth and creationism, that it's 6,000 years old, and that God created the earth in 6 days and rested on the 7th. So that's what I was taught. That's what I believed, that evolution wasn't real, that it was bullshit, that it was a scam by the devil that is trying to mislead people, bring people to hell. And instead I was taught that the earth was 6,000 years old and created in 6 days, and that dinosaurs walked with the humans, lived with humans, and Noah's Ark was real, and all of those ideas. And a lot of people believe that. There are people who give lectures on this. Kent Hovind is his name. I used to watch him as a child, who would even debate creationists or debate evolutionists. It's really, really pretty insane. So that being said, I grew up in this strict Christian household. I was a very devoted Christian. I wasn't just one of those people who read the Bible in the weekends. I read the Bible 2-3 times a day, prayed multiple times a day. So I read the Bible probably at least 3 times a day, at the very least 3 times a day, and prayed consistently throughout the day. Church, of course. I would go to Bible camps as well, retreats, etc. So I wasn't one of those people who just went to the church on the weekend. I was very devoted Christian, and there's a lot more to it than that. And for the sake of time, I don't want to get into all the details of my Christian upbringing, but just suffice it to say, it was very intense, and I am extremely familiar with the scripture, very familiar with the Bible, and having a relationship with God, and what all of that means and what all of that entails. Now, I really started to question around my, when I was probably like, and I'm bad with dates, but probably when I was around 11, 12, 13 is when I really started to question. Now, keep in mind, I didn't stop being a Christian until probably I was around 18, 19, 20, something like that. So that's another thing. Stepping away from Christianity is not something that you just go, oh, I guess that was not true, and then you stop being a Christian. It takes a very long time to get rid of that brainwashing, to get rid of that conditioning. You have to stay away from it for a long time because it really wraps itself around your mind. And I really started questioning Christianity because, well, just things didn't add up. You know, God being apparently loving, but so evil by killing the firstborn children of Egypt, accepting a burnt virgin sacrifice, Jephthah's daughter, commanding Abraham to kill his only son, flooding the earth, drowning the entire world population with a flood, and then allowing people to go to hell and burn for eternity. That was always a big one for me. Hell, I always had a huge issue with. Not only was hell extremely frightening to me, you know, imagine telling a child, and a child literally believes this, that there is a being out there constantly monitoring, reading their thoughts, and if they are sinning, and you can sin with your thoughts, you will burn forever in a lake of fire for eternity. Think about that. You literally believe for eternity you could burn if you are a sinner and you constantly have this being monitoring your thoughts. That's very traumatic for a child. So I always had a very hard time with hell, just the fear of hell, and also trying to reconcile that apparently an all-loving God would let a soul be tortured for eternity. And this could even be a good person. Even good people. You could think of the most moral person in the world, the best person in the world. But if they didn't believe in God, they would burn in hell for eternity. So I always had a big problem with that. I think that was probably the main thing that really kicked off my questioning. Probably, most likely, something like that. And so I started questioning. And then I remember another issue was when a family member of mine brought over a DVD that was called something like The Evils of Satanic Music. And it was supposed to scare children away. It was hosted by Ray Comfort and Kirk Cameron. I think it was called The Way of the Master. And that DVD is probably still out there. And it showed a bunch of rock and roll, shock rock musicians like Marilyn Manson and Ozzy Osbourne and who else? I don't know. But it showed a bunch of their live performances. And up until that point, and it was supposed to, it's supposed to scare children away. And up until that point, I hadn't really heard that kind of music. I was only exposed to Christian music, really, and I always thought Christian music was very boring. So I never really that into music. I always thought, I don't understand why people are so into music. It's pretty boring. Well, it's because I only heard Christian worship music. And think of the contrast between Christian worship music that's all about God. And if you listen to the lyrics of Christian worship music, it's all about how weak you are, how great God is, and how much you need God. That's what all the lyrics are. And it's brainwashing you. You listen to it in church over and over and over again. You play it in your car. You play it while you're working over and over and over again. How weak you are, how flawed you are, how great God is, and how you need God. And, it's awful. It's terrible. Not only is it just very boring to listen to, the music's not that great, in my opinion, but it's brainwashing propaganda to belittle yourself and keep you in need of having this connection with some external deity that's not there. So not only that, but if you think of the difference between that and then regular music, what's regular music all about? It's about expressing yourself. It's about empowering yourself. It's about getting a message across. And so when I was exposed to this music, and these types of artists are pretty extreme when it comes to expression, I was really blown away by seeing how, wow, here are people who are creating and expressing and externalizing themselves. And to see that, I had never seen that before. And to see the difference between a person that is so fearlessly and creatively expressing a part of themselves was extremely inspiring, having only heard really worship music. And that was a big part in getting me to begin questioning as well, because it was still like I couldn't reconcile all this in my mind. Like, how can a loving God have people burn in hell for eternity, even if they're a good person? And then how can it be that life is all about saying how dirty and flawed and sinful we are and how great God is, when you have these artists that are work so hard to express parts of themselves? Like that's such a more invigorating, life-filled way of being. And so that also got, and so this, at a certain point, it really became too much. And that's when I started really trying to see if Christianity was flawed. I started studying the scriptures. I started studying the prophecies, all the different, quote unquote evidence, because in Christianity, they say that there's a lot of evidence for God, and they point to the prophecies and like historical evidence, and it's all a bunch of bullshit. Like, the prophecies are laughable. The prophecies are terrible. They're like, oh, Jesus fulfilled all the prophecies. The prophecies are ridiculous. And the evidence is shoddy. The evidence is just for particular events, not anything to do with the divine. And I started studying philosophy. I really started studying Friedrich Nietzsche and Nietzsche's critique of Christianity. And his book, The Antichrist, was very influential. I don't agree with everything in there. Some of it's a little too extreme, of course. But it really got me questioning and studying philosophy. And then I started listening to people like Richard Dawkins, studying evolution. And this is when I really started to get into philosophy a lot more. And it took me a very long time to no longer consider myself Christian. Again, my timeline is a little skewed. I'd have to really sit down and think about it. But if I started questioning around 11, 12, 13, it probably took me to like 1920 to really step away fully from Christianity. So it took so many years for that brainwashing to deteriorate. And even after that, I had a fear of hell for a very long time. Even if I knew that Christianity was wrong, that fear of hell was still ingrained in me for a very long time. I don't have a fear of hell anymore. There are other issues that I have. I won't get into it too much right now, but some of my depression and anxiety and perfectionism stems from Christianity. And I'll just touch on why perfectionism is one. Is because you have this idea of that you have to be perfect or you will burn in hell for eternity. So think about that. If you're a child, you're trying your best to be perfect for self-preservation. This is self-preservation. You have that instinct of preserving yourself, and so you try your best to be perfect so that you won't burn for eternity. And so that's a psychological leftover, something that I still deal with. I have an intense perfectionism that's left over from that. From religion. So there's a lot of little things like that. So religious trauma syndrome is very real and a very big deal, and can be very damaging. So I always encourage people to talk about it. If you have religious trauma syndrome, talk about it, let people know. We need to spread awareness about it. Now, only do so, of course, if you're comfortable and if it's safe to do so. There are some places in the world where that's dangerous. So make sure it's only in places where it's safe. Don't risk anything. And only if you feel comfortable doing so in like a if you're not at the part of your life where you can do it If it's damaging to your healing, like, for example, if you're just now starting to step away and it would cause a lot of problems with your family that you couldn't handle right now or something, it's okay. Wait till you're at a place where you can do it. So as long as you can do it safely and not in a way that's out of your comfort zone when it comes to healing. But if you're able to, talk about religious trauma syndrome, talk about RTS, talk about the difficulties you've had, talk about the difficulties that it causes, because this is something that we need to spread awareness about. Now, I told you I'm going to give you 4 reasons why I left Christianity. And it really inspired me to talk about this because of this article over on medium.com. And on medium.com, there's an article that says, "They Lied to Me, 4 Reasons I Left Christianity" by Jacob Ferenek. So if you like what we're about to read, go, give Jacob a follow, support him over on Medium. But I'm going to read a little bit of what Jacob said. And I'm going to read the reasons that Jacob left, 4 reasons Jacob left, and compare them with the reasons why that I left Christianity. And if you see here in this first part, okay, I'm going to read some quotes from Jacob here. Jacob says, "When I say they lied to me, I mean it. People I looked up to in my youth told me that God existed. Eventually, I started to question these things, and I realized the enormous extent we all owe to our intuitions on these issues. The people I looked up to in my youth knew that many of the tenets of Christianity require deep faith, but they didn't care to explain the ambiguity. So yes, they lied." This part's important here. "When teaching religion or atheism to impressionable young minds, it is always good to express it in uncertainty. That said, here are 4 reasons why I gave up Christianity. They apply to myself and myself alone. I'm sure you have your own reasons, blah, 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 blah." Okay, but and so I'm going to read his 4 reasons and then give you my 4 reasons. And we're going to compare. But I want to go over this one more time. "When teaching religion or atheism to impressionable young minds, it is always good to express it in uncertainty." That's key. That's important. When we're talking to impressionable young minds, if you're teaching them something and you don't know that it's true, don't pretend that you know that it's true. If you go, "Oh, well, God created the earth and all the animals and the earth is only 6,000 years old." No, tell them, "Hey, you know what? This is what I believe. I believe that there's a God that exists and that he created the earth in 6 days and the earth is, that's what I believe, but I'm not sure. Something else could be true." So telling a child, putting that out there is incredibly important because it's the certainty that is one of the major problems. Where you tell a child, there is a God that absolutely 100% exists in a very real hell that you will burn in for all eternity unless you follow these rules precisely and believe in this and do X, Y, and Z. And if you doubt, doubting is if you don't believe in God, you will burn. So do you see the real psychological hook there is that not believing will result in your eternal damnation. So you must believe. So doubting, some churches are okay with doubting if you want to. So some churches think, "Oh, well, doubting can help strengthen your faith." Because like, "Oh, well, if you're unsure," basically they think, "Well, go study whatever it is that you need to study until you are sure." So it's not so much in some places doubting is just a sin straight up. But other places it's like, well, it's okay if you doubt if eventually you figure out that what you doubted is actually true. So, but it's still, when your soul is on the line, doubting is a very scary thing. Because if you don't believe, you're going to go to hell. So if you start to doubt, which is a wavering of your belief, that self-preservation instinct kicks in where it's like, "Oh shit, well, if I don't believe, I'm going to be burned for eternity. I'm having these doubts. Oh no." Just like all these psychological issues are insane. But also what I want to point out is it says, what I like here, this person, what Jacob says, and I like this, "When teaching religion or atheism to impressionable young minds, it's always good to express it in uncertainty." Yes, so atheism. If you go, "Well, we believe that evolution is true and that there is nothing other than material reality," express it with uncertainty if you don't know for sure. This is what we think. This is what I think, but we're not sure about it. Now, this also applies to what I talk about and our system of meta-rationalism. So our system of meta-rationalism is about understanding the metaphysical world rationally. And what we do is go, hey, we can understand metaphysics, not through faith, not through belief, but through reason and mathematics. Here are the things that we know about reality. And here are some things that, we think are very likely true, but we don't know for sure. It's very important, if one is to be serious about expanding consciousness, expanding knowledge, and putting forth truth, that one is honest when one does not know. So we can say, all right, here is what we know to be true about reality, and these things over here, they're very likely to be true based on what we know, but we don't know for sure. That's very important to keep that open, because if you don't, that's when you start closing and circumscribing consciousness and putting a barrier, and now you start becoming a dogmatic belief system, which is exactly what we don't want. So, very important when one is not certain to express that uncertainty, be it religion, atheism, or anything else. We want to live in a world of truth. We want to live in a world of purpose, a world of meaning, a clear and lucid world, free from dogma and authoritarianism and everything that we don't like about religion. So we have to be, but I like that he included atheism as well, because atheists can be very dogmatic as well. So anyway, let's move on a little bit. I want to read his 4 real quick, and then I'll give you mine. So his first is evidence. And he talks about, just evidence and lack of evidence in the Bible, etc. Scientific reasons. It says it's also true that scientific explanations for creation are infinitely better than any God of the gaps argument. I'm just going to go over his quickly because we don't have a lot of time, and I want to talk about mine. But basically, evidence, scientific reasons, morality, it's an important one, and experience. Okay. And at the end, Jacob says, at the present moment, the best ideology that fits my outlook would be agnosticism, but that's for another time. And I don't know much about Jacob, but I like, so far from what I'm reading, I like him a lot. I like how he's saying that we need to express uncertainty when we're uncertain, whether it's religion or atheism. And I like that he's become an agnostic, not straight up atheist, because I think it's important to keep an open mind, and agnosticism is more open than atheism. So I like this. So we might read a little bit. I'm going to see how much time we have, but we might touch a little bit on the morality thing. But anyway, let me give you my 4, okay? So of course, the 4 leaves, I gave you a little bit about my background. What are, and I talked about some of these already in the story, but what are the 4 major ones? The first one is irrationality, and I talked about this. All the absurdities in the Bibles, there's crazy contradictions. There's God sending people to hell when apparently he's a loving God. There's talking snakes. There's talking donkeys. It's like an episode, the Shrek movie or something. People walking on the water, raising people from the dead. Crazy, just absolutely insane things happening. Children being mauled to death by bears that God commanded to kill them because they made fun of a guy's bald head. It's ridiculous. So all the irrational stuff in the Bible, the earth only being 6,000 years old, creating the earth in 6 days, trying to fit all those animals and dinosaurs, I know it's crazy, on the ark. All huge reasons why I left was main reasons was all the irrationality. And I think the biggest irrationality was a loving God allowing good people to be tortured for eternity. I mean, come on, that should be case closed right there. Like, we shouldn't have to even go any further than that. And apparently all loving God allowing good people to be tortured for eternity. It's crazy to me that we even have to have a conversation. Like, this world is insane. Why do we have to go even any further than that? Like, who, in what world, this one apparently, is that not proof positive that this religion is deeply flawed and false? Anyway, I'm not going to keep ranting about that. I get these moments of just disbelief from what people believe on this planet and how people treat each other. And it's so, like, we're talking about UFOs and whatnot after this, and it's like, yeah, you think aliens want to get involved with this shit? Like, my God. Come on, guys. It's time to, come on. Come on, humanity. You can do it. It's not that hard, all right? Just try not to kill each other. All right? You've had thousands of years to practice not killing each other. But you don't. You just make bigger weapons to kill each other more effectively. That's anyway, let's continue. I will just get hung up on that. So anyway, irrationality was big number one. And then another one, number two, the suppression of individuality, creativity, and expression. And we talked about that when I was able to see people who were expressing themselves. You have a religion that constantly tells you through brainwashing songs and constantly reading about it that you are dirty, you are broken, you are flawed, you are sinful, you are nothing. Without God. You have to have God, or else you are nothing, dirty, broken, sinful, and flawed. God is the shepherd that the sheep follow. Like, that's even, in Christianity, it's a positive thing to call yourself a sheep. Like, how, like, Christianity is almost, like, it's the most absurd thing. It's almost a joke. It's like, what's the most absurd thing that we can come up with? Oh, a loving God that tortures people for eternity. And yeah, everyone who believes in this religion are sheep. Like, it's like, that's what a lot of the religious people say, that they are God's flock, that God is the good shepherd, and they are the sheep, the flock. Anyway, so, this idea of just blind obedience, blind subservience, that you must worship God and obey God and not express yourself, not express your individuality. It's not like expression of individuality is forbidden, but it is if it's any kind of sin. And so many things that are sinful that it greatly suppresses it. So it just breeds conformity. It breeds blandness, and that's what I feel. I feel bad. I don't hate Christians. I despise Christianity. I look at people like Christians and whatnot who are involved in Christianity, and I want to help them. That's why I do a lot of these videos, is for those who are questioning. I want them to be able to break free. And that's why I'm always like, hey, everyone's welcome in my chat. Everyone's welcome on my videos, as long as you're being respectful to each other, is because I want to help people. I feel for Christians and those who are stuck in this religion, because it's a very powerful brainwashing system. And I want them to be able to have fulfilling lives where they're able to express themselves and live the best life they can possibly be. So, don't misunderstand where my priorities lie or what I'm trying to do or get across. It's the religion that I'm against. The people I want to free, the people I want to liberate. At least have them understand, like, Christianity in a more positive way, through perhaps like the positive teachings of Christ and the Gospel of Thomas, where Christ says that you are gods and that you can be beings of light and are powerful, and the kingdom of heaven is all around you. Like, much more positive interpretation. So we need a healthy interpretation of Christianity that's based on the true message of Christ, not the message of Christ that was twisted by the Catholic Church backed by the Roman Empire. The Catholic Church backed by the Roman Empire twisted the message of Christ to create, for the purpose of creating a cohesive empire, so that the empire wouldn't be fragmented. So it had a very specific purpose. So Christianity needs to go back to the true message of Christ, and the true message of Christ is all about you can be like God. You can be, you are divine. Like, that's the whole idea of God in man. Like, Jesus was God in man, meaning that Jesus realized he was divine, and the message is that you all need to realize you're divine too. Jesus isn't someone to worship. Jesus is someone to become like and even surpass. And this was the Carpocratians. The Carpocratians were a group of Christians who believed, who said that they had the secret teachings of Christ passed down from the apostles and disciples orally. Now, if that's true, we don't know if that's true or not, but it's neither here nor there whether it's true or not. It does not matter whether that's true. But they saw Christ as a very enlightened teacher. And if they worked hard enough, they could surpass him. And say, oh, that's so blasphemous. No, any teacher wants their student to surpass them. Any good teacher wants their student to surpass them. Can you imagine how shitty a teacher would be if it's like, oh, well, you can learn things, but only as much as I know. Can't be better than me. That's a bad teacher. Jesus, with a true message and being a true teacher, would want you to surpass him. So anyway, suppressing individuality, creativity, and expression. That was number 2. Lack of religious experience. Now, this was a very difficult one for me. So it made me feel like something was wrong with me, because you had all these people talking about feeling the Holy Spirit and feeling Jesus in their heart and having this connection with Jesus. And I always thought there was something very wrong with me because I didn't have that. I didn't have that connection I didn't feel that connection with the Holy Spirit. And you know what? That's okay. You don't, the thing is, and I see this in spiritual communities as well. People are like, oh, you have to have this vision or feel this connection to source or feel blah, blah. Hey, guess what? If you don't, it's fine. There's nothing wrong with you. If you don't feel like some connection to source or connection to the universe, that's okay. There's nothing wrong with you. The thing is that we're all different. And some people have more of a natural connection to the intuitive domain or being moved in certain ways. And other people have more of a higher sort of firewall, like filter between that. Now, of course, there are things you can do like deep meditative states and certain psychedelics that will allow you to have very interesting experiences. Remember, don't do anything dangerous or illegal. You don't have to do those things. They're not necessary. But anyway, just because you're not having these experiences in your day-to-day life, just because you don't, oh my God, suddenly see a flash of light, and it's fine. It's okay. There's nothing wrong with you. But how it was taught in church and the way people made you feel, it's like if you didn't have that, there was something wrong with you. And I felt very much like there was something wrong with you. That was a very big deal for me, not feeling that. Very, very big deal. And, it's just that when you go to church and you hear certain music and certain chords, well, that's going to make you feel a certain way. And music, when you're with a lot of people and feeling these chords, music is moving. Music makes you feel a certain way. And of course, everyone's like, oh, I feel Jesus in my heart. But of course, me, I'm just like, well, I'm feeling something, but it's just music. So you see where you have other people who are interpreting, oh my, I feel this. I feel the Holy Spirit. For me, it would just be like, well, it's the music, but I didn't realize that as a child. Like, as a child, I'm like, well, I'm just feeling this way because of the music. I must not be feeling what other people are feeling because they're feeling the Holy Spirit, but I'm just feeling the music. Where they're just feeling the music too, but they're interpreting it as the Holy Spirit. So having these not having these religious experiences made me feel like something was wrong with me. Also, people would talk about like seeing miracles and people being healed and all that. And I never saw any of that. And I was like, all right, well, this is getting to be a bunch of BS because people talk about all this stuff. I never see any of this. I never have any experience of any of this. But anyways, that was a very deeply traumatizing thing because you're like, oh no, why don't I feel Jesus in my heart? I'm going to go to hell. Like that was a huge fear for me. I think that was probably the biggest issue for me was that I didn't feel Jesus in my heart, whatever that was. Like, I don't even know what that's supposed to feel like, but I didn't. And I knew that if you didn't have Jesus in your heart, then you're going to go to hell. So I was petrified of going to hell, and I was constantly trying to pray and read the Bible and do whatever I could to have that feeling of Jesus in my heart so that I knew I wouldn't go to hell. So I would know I wouldn't go to hell, but I never did. So very, very traumatizing. So lack of religious experience was another thing that made me leave because I was like, at some point, like, okay, no, this is just a bunch of BS. And then morality. highly immoral. It condemns other people under a system of moral absolutism. So you have a lot of homophobia. You have a lot of sexism in the Bible. There's a lot of homophobia in the Old Testament. Christ never said anything that was homophobic. In fact, Christ healed a centurion's servant when the centurion and the servant were most likely in an erotic relationship. And Jesus didn't condemn them. Jesus even commended the centurion for his faith. So Jesus never said anything against homosexuality at all. In the Old Testament, there's so much terrible things in the Old Testament, but Jesus never said anything bad against homosexuals. So you see how they, again, twisting the Bible. Jesus says, love thy neighbor as thyself. So you should love each other. Jesus wasn't like, oh, well, love thy neighbor as thyself, except for homosexual. No, love thy neighbor as thyself. And that's why I say that the true message of Christ is very good. It was just twisted and perverted by the Catholic Church, backed by the power of the Roman Empire, for the purpose of uniting the empire. The Emperor Constantine said, oh, hey, different people are having different ideas about Christianity and is dividing the empire. Let's call a council of bishops together, the Council of Nicaea, to determine what Christianity is and then enforce that version of it and destroy any competing versions. So morality. And there's so much immorality in the Bible. Killing, and it translates over to how people treat each other in the church as well. And so much hatred. And you just see that a lot of the times people who are so opposed to individuals' rights, especially when it comes to the LGBTQ plus community, it's often religious organizations. And I remember being taught like, oh, wow, like how much my church was like very against LGBTQ, homosexuality. And that's not, my church was pretty normal. Like you have extremists, and then you have pretty liberal Christians, and then you have like the Christians in the middle. I would say my church was pretty average. It'd probably be it wasn't super extreme. We would look at like TV preachers that were, doing healings and whatnot, and we'd be like, oh, that's crazy. That's weird. So we weren't super extreme. So what I mean by that is it's not uncommon. A lot of Christianity is very opposed to LGBTQ plus, looks at women as inferior. If you look into this, look at all the, Google some church retreats about like women's retreats that teach you how to be like a good wife by being a servant to your husband and being submissive to your husband and letting your husband lead you and women are taught as being lesser than men in the New Testament. And I think one of Paul's letters and a couple other places as well. They teach that women are lesser than men because Eve ate from the apple first and gave it to Adam, so that women are lesser than men, and they can be saved though through giving birth to children. So a lot of immorality. So the main things that led me away from Christianity were its complete and total irrationality, absolute insanity, Earth being 6,000 years old, creating the Earth in 6 days, dinosaurs and humans living together, talking snakes, talking donkeys, you name it, suppresses individuality, creativity, and expression, demands worship, lack of religious experiences, and the complete and total immorality of it. And I wanted to talk a little bit more about, because I actually wanted to talk a little bit about the morality of atheism, because there's actually a big problem with the morality of atheism. And we might save that for another time, because I really do want to talk to you guys about that, because that's important. But I don't think we have enough time. And I really wanted to, make this as succinct as possible, because this is really important. And so the main things here to understand is that Christianity does a lot of damage. And what I'm trying to do with my work, and I want to put this out here because we're getting a lot of religious people coming in and looking at my work. And I want to make it clear what it is that I am doing. First of all, I have a very strong Christian background. I was Christian for many, many, many years, more than half my life. And I was a very devout Christian, read the Bible 3 times a day, prayed all the time, attended church, went to Jesus Christian camps, went to retreats, and I was devoted. It wasn't like I was just doing it I was desperately seeking the love of Christ so that I would have Jesus in my heart. I wanted to be an exemplary Christian. This wasn't any facade or anything like that. And the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing, the reason why I talk about Christianity, it's not because I have anything against Christians. On the contrary, it's what I have issue with is Christianity itself. And I want to put messages out there that will help liberate Christians. I want to put a message out there that will either show Christians who are questioning that it's okay to question and that there's a much grander, more beautiful life outside of the brainwashing constriction of the Christian thought system, or show that the true message of Christ is nothing like the hate-filled propaganda that's putting out by the mainstream church today. And if one is going to remain in Christianity, then to at least return to the true message of Christ, which is one about loving thy neighbor, realizing your own divinity, and understanding that the kingdom of heaven is all around you. And that it's not about faith, it's not about submission, it's about a state of mind and a state of heart and a state of living. And that's what is important. So, my friends, I have a lot more videos on my channel. Check them out. A lot of information there. And like and subscribe. This is important stuff to get out there. Please share this with someone who might be questioning or needs to hear this. It can be helpful. And I really feel for everyone out there. And for those of you who have RTS and have walked away, congratulations. You have my respect. It takes a very strong mind, a very strong will to be able to do that. So hats off to you. Feel proud of yourself. That's not an easy thing to do. If you enjoy my work, consider supporting on Patreon. We're having a secret members-only video right after this. Check it out. And I want to give a shout-out to everyone who does support on Patreon, especially Renaissance Fairy, Cassidy, Angela, Fairies of Venus, DB, William, Enki, Nusalina, and newly, Jose Fernandez. The link is right over down right there. There it is. Or you can hit the join button right below the video on YouTube. Thank you, my friends.